Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very inspiring show coming right up with special guest Nita Patel, and she's here today to share with us her new book, Boss Vibes: Self-Esteem, Success, and the Art of Etiquette. Now, have you ever considered what type of impression you're making in the world? If you're ready to take a good look at yourself, or perhaps you know someone that can use a little help, then this is a show for you. Good modern manners can help you make a splash, elevate your self-esteem, enhance your personal brand, and lead to what we're all looking for, which is greater success in every part of life. So our special guest today is here to share just how we can accomplish all of that. Nita Patel is a speaker, author, and artist who believes in modern etiquette as a path to becoming your best selves. Schooled in London and a veteran of corporate America, she has 20-plus years in technology and healthcare leadership and nurturing teams towards confidence and impact. She's currently pursuing studies in psychology at Harvard while exploring the intersection of mindfulness and manners, empowering people to discover self-confidence and success through the lost art of etiquette. So let's welcome to the show, Nita Patel.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You know, what an honor it is to have you here and to talk about your new book. And I have to ask you, what inspired you to write this book?
It's funny you ask that question. You know, I think it's two-parted. I'm very passionate about people understanding the importance of mindfulness and awareness and how necessary it is in our daily lives. But I think the other part, the reason I chuckled is because I think that in our digital age today, I think we've forgotten how to practice good manners. We're so engrossed in our devices that we slam doors behind, people, and we are, on our phones while we're driving, and we're just so in another place that we have forgotten, how to act almost. And that goes along with, practicing good manners. It's like, we don't know what we're doing anymore. So that awareness is lost. And so, that's where I really felt that it was important to remind everyone, hey, step out of your devices and, make sure that you know who's around you, what's around you, and the kind of impression that you're creating.
I mean, my goodness, how important is that? And it's interesting. I couldn't agree with you more. I found your book to be very profound. And a lot of times, I think people just have not learned these life skills. And in the time that we're in, going through a pandemic, it seems that manners have kind of fallen by the wayside altogether.
I completely agree. And I think that especially towards the beginning of the pandemic, to me, it was like, I felt good about what I had written because there was such a need to remind people for the simple things in terms of pandemic language. It was like how to sneeze properly in public and washing your hands and the cleanliness aspect alone. If we had not lost that piece, we wouldn't even have to remind people of that,
Yeah, without a doubt. That wouldn't be something we'd have to teach people. It would be a life skill that they've already developed over the course of their time. But at what point did you realize that, manners were a missing piece, just not even at home? And now we have very unusual workplaces, but just in people's lives altogether.
Well, I think it has more to do with kind of how I was raised or rather where I was raised. I was raised in two different cities in my younger years. And so I partially spent time in school as well, in London, as well as in Dallas. And so, as you can imagine, day and night culture. And so, in London, there were life skills that were taught. The discipline that was taught was completely different than what I learned in Dallas. And so as I, grew older and as I entered the corporate world, I just saw how people behaved very differently. And a lot of times, it was almost in a way that people didn't respect themselves. And I think that's what stood out to me the most is people wanted to get jobs and they wanted to be promoted, but they didn't realize how they were not respecting themselves in what they were asking for. And so obviously they were not going to get the job. And I felt like that was such a gap, that unknown piece of why somebody did not know why they were not being accepted or perceived, in a certain way. And I felt the need to kind of share the information and fill that gap as to why that was happening.
Well, it seems that you're uniquely qualified to be able to really not only discuss this topic, but assist people and teach them in regards to manners and, kind of what's holding them back. And, it's interesting. It seems that people most of the time are very much kind of closed or don't even see what's happening. They never even consider, well, maybe it's my dress or maybe it's the way I'm acting,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think people just go through so much effort. I mean, I can tell you a story of a lady that I met recently, and she was a nurse. She had a double master's degree, and I was listening to her speak about her education and her background. And she had young children, so she had sacrificed so much time, resources, even finances to get all of this education. And it's because she's she's wanting to elevate her life by all means. But the way she showed up to this meeting where she was presenting herself and talking about herself, she was, wearing this kind of summer dress and flip flops, and the material on her dress was attracting all this lint and dust, that material that just attracts everything that's in the
Oh, yeah.
air.
Oh, boy.
Right. And so, that's how she showed up. And all I could think was, oh my gosh, I wish I could just tell her right now, that she spent all this time, on her education, but there are some very simple, basic components that she's missing. And that's what's preventing her from moving forward in her career. And, she may get a better job, but it was like, they're not going to put her in front of a client because they're not able to tell her that she needs to dress differently. And so I feel like, and it's interesting that we're talking about this today because I just shared a post on LinkedIn directing it to HR managers, because there are things that you cannot say to your employees. And I feel like my book really is able to say, hey, don't wear this. This is the right way to dress in the office. Here are things, here's a checklist that you can go through. And so, yeah, I think that there's a gap that really needs to be filled in the information that people are kind of missing with everything that they're doing to move forward. There's a little piece that that's lost, I guess.
I would say, I mean, everyone's seen, Zoom meetings go wrong where maybe someone's forgotten to wear pants that day. It's like,
Right.
where did that happen?
Right. Or people that think it's okay to just have their lunch while they're on a Zoom call. And it's like, okay, if you're going to do that, mute your camera or mute altogether instead of, letting people see what's in your mouth. Just very simple things. And like I said earlier, it's the whole awareness concept, right? It's all the little things that we do all day that adds up to demonstrate how we respect ourselves. And that shows how other people are going to respect us, because if we don't respect ourselves, we're not going to be respected, right?
Oh, without a doubt. And I know in your book, you talk about how the little things matter and how important that is. And it's interesting, when you go through and you're reading the book, it's like, of course, this all makes sense,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's just very interesting to me when people read, parts of the book, or I share something with them and they're like, you're right. That's something that I didn't think about. And so it makes me feel good in a way that I am sharing information that is very necessary, in terms of just reminding people to say, hey, this is why this matters. The reason you get up and you get dressed and you make sure that you look great is not to impress other people. It's so that you feel good about yourself. You feel more confident. that's why etiquette was such a big thing in the past. And I think that there's such a stigma around etiquette, old, I would say, traditional etiquette. There's a stigma around it because people think it has to do with the forks and knives and how you eat with them and, where they're placed on a table. But really, it's so much about awareness and how it makes you feel. It's changing your actions, just that little 2-degree shift in how you do something. You can wear the same dress, but as long as you run a lint roller on your dress before you walk out the door, or, make sure it's not sticking to you. It's those simple things that really make that difference and make you stand out too.
Now, during your work and your research, do you find that personality type that exhibits poor manners most often? I mean, is it like the millennials, or is there, could it be like male, female?
I really try to identify a category of people. And the more people I talked to, they were like, "Oh, it's the millennials," and then I would, talk to millennials, and I would see, a different generation making the same mistakes. And so at the end, I realized there was really no specific genre of people that this was targeted to. This is really for everyone, whether you're in the baby boomer category or whether you're in the Gen Z category. It didn't matter. I think as a society and just how our culture has changed over time, we've just become so casual that even people who grew up with very disciplined etiquette, have just forgotten everything. And so when I talk to those people, they're like, "Oh yeah, my mother made me do this, or my grandmother made me do this." And it was because it was going to make me feel better about myself. I just thought it was, one of their rules. So I really think it's just a reminder in our general society to say, okay, yes, we've become relaxed, but like you said, we've become so relaxed that we decided that it was okay not to wear pants during a Zoom call. And then we had to get up and we forgot that people could see on camera. So,
or the camera actually captures all that, and it's like, right. Oh boy.
Exactly.
Yeah. In today's environment, how does one take responsibility for their own self-esteem, making sure that they're in charge of that?
That's a great question. I think that we, especially in the world of social media, we kind of give that away to other people. We give that control away to other people based on how many likes we get or how many comments we get or what somebody says to us. And I think that that's a part of the confidence and self-esteem factor that's forgotten, in terms of we have control of that. Especially we're talking about the pandemic here. So during the pandemic, I'm sure there were people who decided they didn't need to wash their hair for a week or two. And I can tell you that those people did not feel as good as the people who still got up every day and, got dressed like they were about to go out the door, even though they were never going to leave their house. But they just felt so much better about themselves. And so it really impacts your personal self-esteem, your personal confidence. And, my underlying message in all of this is when you feel confident, when you feel good about yourself, you can really achieve anything. You make better decisions, you do better, you decide to do better things in life. And you just find success in a much easier way, because when you're not feeling confident, you're very unsure of yourself. You're making the wrong decisions. You're not sure if you made the right decision. That whole ambiguity, it does not lead to success. And so how we can take control of our emotions and I give a lot of confidence building tips and tools in the book, where I talk about body language, and it's simple things, like I said, sitting up straight, sitting up tall, stretching your arms. I love giving that example. When I talk to people, it's like you stretch your arms in a V shape. It's kind of the victory pose, when somebody wins a game or, something really great goes your way, you kind of do that fist pump, or, you throw your hands in the air. Those body poses actually impact your physiology, and they make you feel better about yourself. They change your hormones in your body when you do those physical poses, and that changes how you feel. And so, these are things that are forgotten that I want to share with people and say, hey, all you have to do are some little things throughout your day, and that's going to help you feel good throughout your day. Because, as human beings, we tend to have the roller coaster effect of emotions throughout our day. We may start great, and then someone says something to us, and changes the whole mood of our day. But these physical poses and how you shift your body language can actually change that, and it can make you feel better. So I think they're just wonderful tips to share with people and remind them that you're in control of how you feel. And guess what? You can feel great all the time. And I understand, we're not going to feel 100% all the time. But when you're in that moment, at least you have the awareness to say, I can change how I feel.
That's where personal responsibility starts. And it's interesting. I mean, in your book, you talk about quite a few things that can bring people to a certain level of awareness. One of the things I found was interesting. You talked about conversational quicksand. And I'd love for you to expand on that for our listeners.
Sure. I mean, I think the biggest thing there is, well, there are a few things, but the one thing that I will point out is to build connections with people, to build better relationships, whether it's personal or professional. You really need to understand who you're talking to. And the only way to do that is to listen. And if you don't listen, then, you're not really going to be able to make that connection, because all you care about is getting your next thought and your next idea out to the other person.
Oh my gosh, active listening is so important, and that is conversational quicksand when you look at it, because I mean, everyone knows when you're, at a meeting, and everyone breaks out for a moment, or maybe you're, doing Zoom conversations. And if somebody's just detached, waiting to talk, you can feel it. No one wants to be around that.
Right. It's like, are you listening to anything I'm saying? Okay, well, let me just stop talking then.
Yeah,
you're missing an opportunity, right? Right,
oh, yeah.
Right. I mean, if it's a client, let's face it, we're constantly selling ourselves, no matter, what we're doing, where we're at. And if you miss that opportunity, you've lost a sale, you've lost a client, you've lost the potential of a relationship, there's just so many things that are at stake if you are not being an active listener.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, I think, a pitfall. What are some of the other pitfalls that you notice from people that you're working with?
In terms of conversation, I would say, and this is especially towards women, I think women do this by far more than men do, but I call them vocal tics. And it's when you elevate your pitch at the end of something, because you're not confident in what that is. And that happens when people introduce themselves. It's like, even when they say their name, it's almost like they're asking if that's the right answer or not, because we're so caught up in wanting approval, needing validation. It goes back to kind of what I mentioned about social media earlier, is we're looking for that approval because we don't have the confidence within us. And so those are the little things that you can change to say, let me change how I say my name, so that I'm not saying, and I'll just give you an example. It's like, I'll say, oh, hi, my name is Nita, and it's like, I'm not sure. Can you be okay with it? And then I'll be like, okay, great. Nice to meet you, versus, hi, my name's Nita. And so you're probably going to notice it now that I said that.
I will, everywhere I go.
Ending a note on a high pitch it demonstrates uncertainty. and you don't know how people are reading you. But again, when you're in front of, those important meetings and clients and people, those things matter. And so that's something that I think is very important to share is, and again, like I said, these are all very simple tweaks that we can make in our lives every day. Some of them take a little bit more effort than others, but it's just about the awareness and how am I saying this? How does it make me feel? And you actually feel, I mean, you can try it when you end a note in a higher pitch versus, you just say it straight. You actually feel a difference in how you feel. And so, everything goes back to confidence and how it makes you feel better and kind of the impression that you're making through that and what you're able to accomplish, of course.
Yeah, without a doubt. It's interesting how some really simple things like that can make such a huge impact on how people perceive you.
Right. Especially when you're at an interview, right? And you walk in and, you introduce yourself and you end your name with a high pitch. It's like, well, I don't know if they're confident. and that could be a deal breaker. They say that people have already made an impression about you in the first 7 seconds. And oftentimes you don't even have to say anything. And so when you do say something, you want to make sure that you are exuding your confidence, that, your presence is very much there. Because you do have it, everybody has it within them. It's just a matter of knowing where to focus and, bringing that awareness back.
So in today's environment, I mean, most people are, if they're going into work, there are very few people there. A lot of people are using Zoom to communicate or other forms, such as that. Is it possible for people to succeed and stand out and shine while we're going through all this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's possible. Now, I will say it's much, much harder through online, but I think and this is where I think the whole, camera etiquette, making sure you have the right lighting so people can see your face and your expressions, because that's all you have, right? Smiling. I mean, even when you're on the phone, even if it's not a video call and you're on the phone with someone, for example, when you smile, that energy, that joy is conveyed through your voice versus when you're upset. And, nobody can see your face, but your expressions can convey that emotion. And so on video, it's really important to make sure you have the right lighting. You don't have distractions when you're talking to people. You're using your audio and video mute as appropriate, but really, looking into the camera and being expressive and really being present. I think a lot of times we're so caught up in our heads and what we have to do next and the 10,000 things that are waiting for us that we're not being present. And so if you're not, then you're not conveying yourself across as successfully. And so I would say, being present, being fully there will allow you to express yourself through the camera.
And watching those devices that you mentioned earlier too, because I mean, how annoying is that when, maybe you're, meeting, having a Zoom meeting, or actually we're getting to a place where we can meet with people in restaurants and, they're on their devices.
Right. Yes. I think that I'm going to go back to a little more traditional sense in that. And I'm going to say, put your cell phone away when you're in front of someone, especially if you're having a nice meal with them or something, unless you're really expecting a very important phone call or, you're expecting to have a conversation. It might be okay, but it's just rude. I think it's disrespectful because you're now finally taking time out to meet with this person and you have your phone in front of you, and every time it, dings or the screen flashes on, you're going to look at it and you're losing that connection again.
Yeah, I think the only ones that get a pass on that would be like, first responders.
Right. I agree with you.
Well, through your journey, what was the single most important thing that you learned that has really leveled you up to where you're at today? If there's a single thing, maybe multiple things.
Oh gosh. um, I don't know that there's a single most thing, but I will say, generally speaking, and we've seen and heard this phrase a lot. I think through social media is no matter what happens or no matter what's going on in your life, get up, get dressed, and show up. And I think that that is very important for everyone. Life isn't steady for anyone. Um, and so, everyone's having a good day, bad day, or anything in between. And so how do you maintain balance and in yourself? And when you get up, get dressed and show up, that at least proves to yourself that no matter what happens, no matter what's going on in your life, um, you're in control of how you feel and you can make it a little bit better than it is merely by doing that. I think it's underestimated. And I think the misconception, like I mentioned earlier, is that sometimes we do it for other people, but it's really not. I think it's, the simple things like that we're doing for ourselves that really demonstrate how we can control our joy and our happiness. And, I say this because I think that our society is very much after success. And the reason for that is because they're wanting to experience joy. But I think the true joy and the daily joy is lost in reaching for that success. And so doing these simple things, even if you're having dinner by yourself, just setting a nice, plate and using your glassware and silverware, it makes a difference, maybe listening to some nice music while you're having dinner versus if you're sitting in front of the TV and, you're eating on your paper plate and you're kind of lounged out. That's a much different experience in how you're going to feel. You're not going to feel so great when you're doing that. But when you're, sitting with a set plate and, you have some nice music playing, maybe some candles lit, it's just a different emotional experience that you're having. And that's what makes every day worth living. That's what makes every day, that's what gives it the experience, the joy. And that's all within us, right? That's not something that we can find outside. We can, I don't know, buy all the things in the world to find happiness or joy. But it's really coming from within us, right? That gets lost in moments. But if you're doing something like this every day, that's the constant. And so I think that's what I would share with you as a takeaway from some of the things that really matter.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I mean, I use my fine china every day because I'm worth it.
I love
I
that.
don't,
I love that.
yeah, I don't need that special occasion. Every day is my special occasion. And it's interesting because you see people that will bring them out, once in a blue moon, and it's kind of like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I can appreciate that. But at the same time, I don't know. I think that having things and not really using them at some point, it's kind of just having things.
Right. And that's funny you say that. I say something to my my friends and family in situations like that, and I'll say, yeah, every day is my birthday. um, which
I
means the
love
same
that.
thing, right? It's like, why wait for one special day to use your nice china? Why not use it every day? It's only going to make you feel better. And that's why we work so hard. Right?
Of course, of course. Use the silverware, use the fine china. There's no rules against that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, where can people connect with you and learn more about your book, Boss Vibes?
Sure. And if you haven't purchased a copy, it's available everywhere books are available online. Um, but to find more information on the book and kind of my programs, You can find that on my website at nita-patel.com. That's nita-patel.com. You can also find me on social media, on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. Those are the three primary places that I share some information. But I would say on my website is the best way to get all the latest and greatest information.
Well, Nita, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you, Nita. It has been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book, Boss Vibes. Boss Vibes is available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie retailers. And if you don't see it on the shelf, ask for them to order it. And of course, it's available on Kindle. Again, if you'd like to connect with Nita, you can at nita-patel.com for more information. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary. A recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Sunday, Monday, Thursday, and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.